I don't I don't think that's necessary, but I'm not on TV or anything. I'm just recording a little video. This is my son Robert. He's trying to help. He's trying to be helpful, but I don't think this is necessary. Thank you, though, Robert. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I think I'm ready. Oh, hello, everyone. This is Mr. Bob, and for those of you who have had me in class, it's good to be with you again. And for those of you who are here for the first time, thank you for sharing a little time with us. We have a very nice lesson today, and it's called an experimental or accidental watercolor painting lesson. I think it's very important right now. A lot of people are shut up in their houses, and they're kind of getting cabin fever. So this is a real nice time to do some artwork and stay creative. So this is what we're going to do today. As I said, it's an experimental lesson, and I've done it several different times. The great thing about this particular painting lesson is there's no right or wrong answer. There's only your way, and that's the way we're going to do it. So you can see, I'll try to get this as close as possible, that it looks like a jumble of different colors, but the closer you get, it almost resembles a landscape. So we're going to apply our watercolor papers or paints to the paper, and then try to figure out what it is after the fact. Now there's a few things that you're going to need today for the lesson. Some sort of art paper. Now the thicker the paper is, the better you're going to get, the better product you're going to get. I'm using some watercolor paper, but regular art paper would be fine as well. Now if you are using thinner paper, you might want to use a little bit less water, because the more water that you put on, the more of a chance that it's going to actually go through your paper, and we don't want that. So we need some sort of art paper. Thicker the better. Now I'm putting mine on a cutting board. Don't tell my wife that I'm using her cutting board. You can just use the kitchen table or dining room table. You'll just need a nice surface to paint on. If you're going to do something like this, though, I recommend that you tape it down first so it doesn't move on you. We're also going to need a watercolor set. If you have something like this, that's great. The plastic top to it is a great place to mix your colors, but make sure afterwards to clean that out, because the next time you use it, it's going to be all messy. You're going to need also some paintbrushes. Now, the paintbrush that comes with it is fine. I'm going to use a little bit bigger brush like this. I'm going to use a medium-sized brush that looks like this, and I'm going to use a thin brush that looks just like this. Now you, on the other hand, can use whatever you have on hand. We're going to need a little water. Water wakes up our paints. If you've ever used watercolors before, you know that once they set, they dry out, but you wake them up with a little bit of water. Now, I also have a cup of coffee here. I have to make sure that I know which one's the coffee and which one's the water, because I don't want to drink the watercolor water, and I don't want to put my paintbrush in my coffee cup. So, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my larger brush and I'm going to simply paint the paper with water. Let me hold up my paper like this. Now we don't want to saturate the paper. We just want to get it wet. You'll know that you have the right amount when you see a nice shine on your paper. So we're going to continue to do that from one side to the next. Now, our painting does not have to include the entire piece of paper. Actually, sometimes I like to leave a little bit of the paper without any paint on it at all. So, I hope you can see this. When you're done, your paper should be a little bit shiny like that. Now it's time to have some fun. With our medium-sized brush, we're going to start to put colors in. And for this one, I'm not going to go very realistic. I'm going to use all kinds of different colors. Maybe we could say that this is a little bit abstract. Abstract means that it's not exactly perfect to nature. So, first of all, I'm going to put my lightest colors in first. Watercolors are transparent, so you can see through them. And you don't want to cover up your light colors. So we're going to put our light colors in first. Now, the yellow that I'm going to put in signifies the sun, of course. Now, when we start to apply our other colors, we have to keep in mind that because that paper is wet, the colors are going to mix. So if we apply the blue right to the yellow, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get a green sky. You might not want a green sky unless you want to be really out there with your colors. I'm going to be a little bit less experimental with green skies. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and I'm just going to start putting the blue in. It doesn't need to be any place in particular. Now with the water there, the blue is going to expand and it's going to grow, just like that. You know, I love the color purple. Sometimes you can see it in the sky. We're definitely going to see it in our sky today. So I'm going to add some purple to it. The purple will mix with the blue, and it'll make a very interesting watermark once it's done, because you'll see where one ends and the other one begins. Oh, I'm liking this already. Can you see the colors move? It's okay if you tilt it and it moves down a little bit. Remember, this is experimental. There's no right or wrong answers. I think I want to throw in some reds now. This might be the time of the year when everything starts to bloom. Well, pretty soon it will be. The winter can't stay around too long. So I'm going to throw in some really deep reds in there. Oh, I really like the way that this is going. Every time you go to a different color, you have to clean out your brush. I know you can't see what I'm doing here, but every time I go this way, I'm cleaning out my brush. I think it's time now that I have to put in some greens. Remember, this is going to be a landscape. I'm going to add some greens to it, maybe in the foreground. Wait, what's a foreground? The foreground is the area in the painting or the landscape that's closer to you. So I'm going to put my greens in the foreground. You might know this already, but all landscapes are basically the same. They have three main parts to it. There's a foreground, there's a middle ground, that's the place in the middle, and the background. The background is the part that's farther away, so you're going to see less detail in the foreground. I'm going to continue to put my colors in. You know, those greens that I put in, I think they're a little too dark. Remember, the paper's still wet, so anything I apply to it, it's going to mix. I'm going back and picking up some yellow and then adding the yellow to those greens. Not all over the place, but just here and there. I can't wait to see what this is going to be like. What if we wanted to really tamp down that red a little bit? If I wanted to make it orange, I would add a little bit of yellow to that too. So, that's what I have. Now, I'm going to take that particular one off. If I wanted to speed up the process here, I would take a hair dryer. In fact, I have one right here. And dry that so I can paint on the top of it. Because now we're going to work on the branches and the sticks and the trees and the things that are growing out of our experimental landscape. So, I'm just taking the tape off. And with this, I'm going to set it aside to dry. We can get back to that one later. But, to make things a little bit faster, what I did was, I did one a little while ago. This one's really nice and dry. So we can go ahead and paint on this now. Now this is the time that we're going to use our smaller brush. And if we look at our example that's already finished, and let me get it real close, you can see that there are branches coming up out of all the confusion of different colors, the explosion of different colors. So we're going to do that with our smallest brush. Let me set this back over here. What colors to use? That's up to you. Remember, everybody's picture is going to look a little bit different. But a lot of people go right to brown when they're doing their trees. They go right to brown. But if you look at a tree, there's a lot of different colors in the trunk of a tree. It could be gray, it could be bluey gray, it could be brown, it could be darker brown, or even almost a black. So you decide what color your branches and what color your tree trunks are going to be. Today, this is very experimental. My tree is going to be blue. We're going to use blue. And I'm going to use a dark blue so it's going to show up a little bit better. Remember, there's a lot of colors there. And it's a confusing mass of colors in the back. So we're going to have to give it some refinement and we're going to have to give it some detail. So I'm going to my colors right now and I'm going to pick up a nice bit of darker blue. Now what I did was I kind of twisted the paintbrush a little bit so to make sure that my paintbrush has a nice point on the end. I'm going to put a little bit more water and do this again to make sure I really load it up. Then I'm going to go into the painting. Wish me luck. Hope you can see this. So I'm going to start with a really, really wiggly line, and that's going to signify my tree. So here's my first line. How does it look? You know, a very famous artist named Paul Klee once said, a line is a dot that went on a walk. So you start with the dot and then you keep going. Now, straight lines to me are boring. We don't want straight lines. We want wavy, crooked lines. And the wavy, crooked lines are going to look a lot more realistic when you see everything together. So I'm going to go back and put some more crooked little lines in my painting. I think I want another tree on the other side to balance things a little bit. I made that line a little bit thicker. Maybe that's an older tree. It's been around for a while. Now, I can start doing the branches. The branches have to be thinner than the trunk because if they were bigger, the tree would fall over. So I'm going to start putting in thinner lines off of the trunk. And just like the trunk, I want those lines to be crooked. Now I'm not really loading my paintbrush up with a lot of paint on this because I really don't want that color to be darker than the trunk itself. I want them to be light, very light, and to look like they're as thin as possible. If you can see the way I'm holding my brush really gently and not pushing on it. If you push on your brush, you tend to get a thicker line. If you hold it upright like this, you'll get a thinner and more pencil-like line. You want to see the progress so far? It's really starting to come together now. It's looking nice. Sometimes I like to turn my paper. You know why? I have a tendency to drag my hand across it. And while that paper's wet, you really don't want to drag your hand across it because you've worked really hard at this. And you can't erase paint. What did you say? I'm painting upside down. Sometimes I do that. It's looking better and better. I'm going to totally paint upside down now. You know, I think what I want to do is make this trunk a little bit thicker. The first time that I put it on, it was kind of thin and it wasn't really realistic. So I just added a little bit of paint to it to thicken it up, especially down at the base. Now, how many branches should I put on it? That's totally up to you. Remember, everybody's work is going to look a little bit different. The great thing about this is no matter how hard you try, never going to come out exactly the way you thought. And you'll never be able to do two that are exactly the same. Who would want to do that anyway? Okay, let's see where we are. I'm liking this painting more and more. Now, taking a look at it, I can decide where I want more branches and where I think it's just fine and to leave it alone. I have to be mindful that you really can't see all of the paper. Okay, I really like what we've got here. So, we've got the very colorful background to it, and out of all that chaos of color, we have two trees growing up. Now you can continue to develop this and change it and alter it until you get something that looks like this. And don't forget, when you're all done, sign your name. All artists sign their name to their work. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and tune in because we have more lessons scheduled for you. And I also encourage you to take a photograph of your work and ask your parents' permission first, and then you can post it to the Facebook page of Arts and Education at the Hoyt. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Bye-bye.